Shabbat Shalom. Good morning and welcome to Throwing the Baby Out with the Bathwater. My name is Brian. Cannot tell. That's a old handle that came from Facebook. And people have been mentioning a few times lately about, oh, I thought that was an actual name. I'll go ahead and tell a quick story. Good morning, Budget. Thanks for joining in here. I'm about to tell about the cannot tell real quick. I had started a homestead in Tennessee back in 2005, 2006. We acquired some land. Me and my family at that time, which were just my three older children, were all living in a 40-foot travel trailer. It was a bunkhouse. We divided the front into three separate little spaces, cubby holes for them. And so they were quite close for about 2.5, 3 years. Which when they all talk about those times, it was some of their most fond memories. But we were setting up Facebook, and there was, we had moved from Waimama, Florida. And in Waimama, Florida, in the period of 2.5 years, we'd gone from a neighborhood that had had just 2 or 3 crimes a month to having 7 predators living within a mile of the house. So in the predator paranoia and all that kind of stuff of that era, our last name became Cannot Tell, and me and all the kids had their own accounts under Cannot Tell, and we started doing the homestead thing on Facebook. And so that stuck since 2005. And every account that Google's ever signed me into through Facebook has always ended up being either Ron or Brian Cannot Tell. So that gives you another good clue. Smiles, thanks for coming in, buddy. Good to see you this morning. I'm going to sit here and figure out how to get a chat going so I can watch one that doesn't just blink on and off of my camera phone. Oh, I'm late this morning because I'm a little shaky. Of course, by my own doing and fault. I enjoyed my friend's birthday party last night. I usually only drink like 1 drink on very rare occasions. I drank 3. My system did not care for it, and it reminded me why I only drink 1 drink at a time. This one. Someone to argue with me this morning. That won't work. That said, cheers. I have to give stupid disclaimers because of YouTube. I am a medical patient in Florida. You will see me smoke on occasion. I have Crohn's and other degenerative illnesses. And I have found this has made it so that I can live somewhat of a normal life. I was fortunate that I haven't had the nausea this morning. I've just had the kind of borderline it wants to be. So I think we're going to be all right. I've sat and debated all week about what to do today. On throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And I've decided I'm going to start by going back to some of my foundational belief. What started me on a path of trying to live in love as opposed to find a way to create my own universe around me, because love is a union and a working of many different people together. It's not just about how can I create my space to make me happy. It's about how can we work together to make a community happy. And I find those things written in the scriptures of the Bible. Um, Part of the 14 tablets of Enki is the creation story, and it pretty much starts with that. So I wanted to start off by just reading the creation story out of the beginning of the scriptures, and then break out the tablets. I'm going to throw up some links, and then whoever's in here, we can start to maybe dissect some pieces and maybe look at some follow-ups on some of the other tablets and stuff like that. Um, so that being said, many of you have already heard this, but I am going to read from a King James because that's the only one I've got in big enough letters for an old man like me to see without wearing these. And when I work all week with these on, I prefer not to have them on my day off. My personal belief is that no matter which scriptures you read, that if you don't sit and try to pick apart and prove your own personal point, but read the stories and the allegories and the histories for what they are, because there are all of those different elements in all of the different ancient writings. If we read them for what they are and look at them in the whole of their truth, I think we can begin to see some things. Anyways, from this text, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. Now, a couple of things I want to point out real quick is that some of this has to obviously be a primordial description, because anything we know of within the created universe requires light and darkness to have been separated, not just out of darkness light came into existence. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heaven be gathered together into one place, and let dry land appear," and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters he called the seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, let the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth," and it was so. And the earth brought forth grass, and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself after his kind, and God saw that it was good. Now, I'm going to pause there real quick because just want to bring a quick attention to the fact that the earth brought forth these different living things, and God said that it was good. And that was the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth," and it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And he set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. Now I'm going to pause again, because if you listen, the lights were established before the stars were set into the light's place. So we have once again a co-unity of creation between the universe and the creator. And he said it was good. Um, and to and he set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So he creates the light, then he places stars in their place to shine upon our universe. They're given in a particular order, and he saw that it was good. And that was the evening and morning of the fourth day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creature that hath life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales and every living creature that moveth, which the waters brought forth abundantly after their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind. And God saw that it was good. Once again, I'm just going to say here, notice that in conjunction with the water, we have both the flying animals of the air, and we also have the fish of the ocean. And then we have specific mammals which are listed as being created within those things by the creator himself. So I'm just throwing that in there. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters and the seas, and let the fowl multiply in the earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Okay, and we said and God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image, and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle of the earth, and over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. And God created man in his own image, and in that image of God he created him. Male and female he created them. Okay, so here we have a clear, distinct male and female of every creature was created at the same time. It was created in conjunction with the earth once again. And then there was an order established in which this male and female were put in a position over the creation or the animals. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth. And I'm going to stop right here and note that it keeps saying replenish the earth at this point. This creation is a replenishing. I forgot to bring that up the first time we read it. But anyways, he says, replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over living thing that moveth upon the earth. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb-bearing seed, which is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree, in which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. Okay, so this created man and woman was given every herbal thing for meat or for eating. Oh, give me just a moment. Where'd you go? Oh, pardon me. And to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat, and it was so. So at this point of creation, all the plants were given for food to all living things. And God saw everything that he made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. And the heavens of the earth were finished, and all the hosts of them. And the seventh day bug crawling around in Florida. We don't like bugs crawling around. I'm sorry, that was a distraction. Uh, Behold, it was very good. In the evening and the morning of the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had made, and rested on the seventh day from all of his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all the work which God created and made. And I'm going to stop here because this is where we start into what appears to be a record of some type of second creation event as well. But I wanted to start with the original creation event, and I know that there's many theories about many of the different words in there. I have, because of the many different faiths and backgrounds, studied many of them. So looking forward to a conversation on that as soon as I can figure out how to get a YouTube chat readable. Yeah. I forgot to clean out my juicer yesterday, and it doesn't take long for fruit flies to find a home in Florida. And I had left some avocado rinds waiting for the stuff that was in the juicer. And by George, if you don't keep them out of the house when you start growing, if we're able to do it, which they're saying might be the 15th of this month, we might, with medical cards, be able to grow again in Florida. We're hoping the legislature runs a little slow and doesn't throw some kind of law in between now and then. But those little gnats are a bane of existence for anybody who grows any type of greens indoor, not just pot plants. So let me go back to the task I was doing. All right. Little Cicely, Bingus, thanks for joining me this morning. I'm going to try to catch up on what you guys have been saying. Oh, small tubes. I backed all the way up to where he was. Small tubes also suffers from Crohn's, and that scoping, while it lets us know where our condition is at, is a very dangerous procedure. Most people don't realize that because most doctors can't just go in and look. They got to cut things. And when you have a what's the word, suppressed immune system, that's not a good deal. And yes, I'm running slow this morning, but I'm doing all right. And actually, I'm feeling pretty good as we go along here. Little Cicely, it's kind of interesting how in many of the different ancient texts, the earth is its own or has been an entity within the celestials. And this is going to sound kind of strange, but here we have a description of the creator coming upon her in a state of chaos and broken down, and his spirit, by moving across, separates first the land and the water. I, you can go into a lot of the cosmologies. There is a very deep spiritual thing that happened at that point in time. It's in one of the existence above where we understand at this point in time. And while there are many beings that come to this realm and try to describe it to us, or where our eyes are partially unblinded, where we can see into that space at point in times, there's enough cloudiness that you got to be very careful of deception. And right now, I am trying to pull up my copy of the tablets of Inky. I had them up, but in my effort to get up YouTube, I accidentally made them go away. And I've put my camera right where they seem to want to put all the menus, so that's not a good idea for next week. I've been very good, Bingus, about while I had grows going, making sure that my composting was done in a proper manner. And by doing so, it kept the gnat problem outdoors and subdued, and I really never had an issue inside. I do my IPM with diatomaceous earth, so that's kind of an issue for them to start off with. I'm going to do some shifting around here so I can raise stuff a little bit better. Hey, Hog, thanks for coming in this morning. Saying hi. So, I'm not sure who all's left in here. But I'm seeing that my idea here is not going to work out this way either. It might. I'll try it. A few things that I've been I guess the best way to go about this is to tell you how I started reading tablets. Um, Being that I did the whole Y2K prep thing, and in the following years after that, built a way to get out of society and do the homestead thing. As you can tell, my head for some period of my life and nose has been in a conspiracy type of realm. Um, I came by it honestly. My dad, even though a Southern Baptist pastor, was born with a bit of the touch. Um, he was prophetic, and he was very careful about saying what he saw or making statements that were along the prophetic line, and I never understood why for a long time. But the those type of things that came true kept my interest in prophecy. And by being a person who went from a hyper structured religious, everything has to be done by our set of rules, into a completely so-called anarchic, but it's actually just a whole nother system. I'll discuss that at some other time. Uh, Theology of what is called occultism. I spent 10 years, doing the whole uh, churches of light and TM and shoot, I can just go through the list of all the different steps into darker and darker or more boy, it's hard to I'll just put it out there. I'm a crazy person. No, it's hard to explain this because for many, this is considered a psychological issue. It's an issue of, to many people, okay, there's a real and there's a dream. And you're stuck in a dream, buddy, because you're seeing and hearing things that are not our normal understanding. And by continually looking into those things, you plug yourself into that socket of energy. And as you go further and further into playing with those energies, there are rules in place for those as well. There are authorities over those energies. You can go into it blindly goofing off with it, and then boom, an authority will smack you down because you're not supposed to be doing those things in its realm, and thereby becomes a new form of slavery. Um, and it is a uh, if you're going to go into a selfish aspect of it, where you take the mindset, I'm the creator, and for me to be happy, I have to have everything in my own bubble, in my own sphere, to be exactly as I imagine in order for me to have happiness, then you're going to take a very selfish line down those forces. And as you do, you come under curses because you don't know the rules and you bump into these uh, spirits and authorities that are in these places. And so I went that path, and I learned the reality of spiritual forces and spiritual entities, and the reality of um, there being some who were in places of authority who had stepped out or rebelled or decided that they weren't going to follow the chain. And I believe that's what we're seeing here in these tablets, because as I'm in that path, I'm keep seeing all these people referring to this knowledge being in these ancient texts. And we're learning our secrets from these ancient texts. We're getting in touch with the spirits who are teaching us how to do this through these ancient texts. And there were a few of those texts I had enough fear of that I just never went that far into the darkness. Um, but when you get there at its door and you meet its gatekeeper, then you have some conversations and things. And okay, this is a psychosis. This is happening in my mind. Well, then why is it in my real world manifesting itself that the curses proclaimed there in my dream are now really happening in my life? You know, this person's going to die in 2 years and boom, they're dead. You know, why is these things happening? Watch out, your neighbor's going to have this happen to them, and within a day or two, boom, that person's down with this or that, or, you know. So in that point, you see that there's definite connection. And my point of existence came to where I pushed beyond boundaries I should have and got closer to the death side than I should have. And to put it point blank, is for 3 years I had the fear of the death of AIDS in my life every single day until I tested and tested and tested, and it was proven I didn't have it. And over that period of time that I'm doing these tests, these 6, 7 people that I've been partying with are dying one after the other of AIDS. So I had also OD'd twice during that period of time, so had literally been at the door of death. So for me, it's hard to place a wall between the spirit and the physical within my life because I've been there, I've made decisions, seen those things manifested from the spiritual side into the physical side. We have here an example at the very beginning. He says, I'm writing these tablets to defend my position for having gone against a spiritual rule or authority. Throughout these tablets, we have rebellion presented over and over through jealousy, through pride, over who is going to rule. We have rape testified to. We have murder testified to. Okay, these are not things that are creative forces. So what I'm trying to do here is start to set a stage of the two different stories or the two different sides we're looking at when we take the story of creation from Scripture as opposed to the story here. Now, did these two things happen within conjunction of each other? My personal belief is yes, that each of us has a side to an argument that we see as to how we justify ourselves. And that's exactly what this is. It's a justification of his behavior within this story. But I think because of that, we've got to be careful of some of the terms that are used, like created man, when it's clearly told in this story that Enki came across man, found him down near some mines that he was working, and couldn't communicate with him, couldn't control him, couldn't have this quote unquote civilized or communication level on this plane with him. Yet it's obvious that this man had some type of ordered society because there's getting to be more and more and more of them. We have from the testimony of this that this time frame starts sometime during the Ice Age. Being 250 to 400,000 years ago. All these things are now quote unquote scientifically proven by different core analyses and all different kinds of things like that. And when they do that, they find even older possible traces of civilization. And we find even older stories that tell the same thing. Spiritual or spacely authorities who have stepped out of their place and who are now defending their position. And yet, in each one of these stories, except for this particular text, we usually find a set of spiritual laws listed. Spiritual moralities, things that we should just assume are ways of being good. In these tablets, in its creation story, we don't have a conjunction of a heavenly force and an earthly physical existence combining to make a new type of creature. We have somebody coming in and modifying a creature that they find here, modifying a plant that they find here, modifying a landscape that they find here for the purpose of taking out its resources, for removing, not for building, but for removing. I find that is one of the big differences between the two texts. And I believe that the reason is because this spiritual battle or spiritual conflict, It goes beyond that, because it is the whole existence of the two things. Uh, you have two seeds. Anything which decides to follow and walk within Creator's set pattern, and you have those that decide that they're going to do for themselves, or they're going to rule something within the Creator's pattern outside of the place where they've been placed as an authority. Um, I need to switch back right here to my chat. Um, Stick Built Jetta Jones, thanks for coming in this morning. The Book of Life. Um, yeah, see, that's the crazy thing. In order for the Creator to prove that He is the one that created the whole thing, as His final testimony, He opens up a book and then He compares it to everything that's standing before Him, and it's going to line up exactly as to who is to move into that next life and who is to, be whatever the next part is. He's got the Antichrist reign for the period of a lifetime estimated about 70 years. Can't have Christ without cannabis. I'm going to disagree with the last part of that statement, and I'll tell you why later. But as far as the first part of it, the estimated lifetime that we are at, we find written of both in this text, the tablets of Enki, and we find written of in the scripture as being that if man continued for such a long time, our accomplishments would so outweigh what's left of the resources or the essence of earth. We wouldn't be able to expand beyond it fast enough, or somehow I can't explain or say how all that works. But both texts say that if we continue to do things in our own power, and I'll say, look at what we're doing now with CERN, look at what we're doing now with genetics, we would step outside of boundaries that would keep us contained. And yes, I know there's many who say we need to get outside that containment, but will keep us contained within this universal structure, which keeps it moving together toward an ultimate creation that we all work together for the betterment of all. That's love. Um, that, and I'm going to throw in real quick, that is where faith and hope come in. That the one who created this has a perfect plan for it all. That it's not for us to be slaves, but as we fulfill our position as cogs within a machine, this machine goes forward. And then as it all fruits through, we all work together for enlightenment. We all work together for this next stage of evolution. And this is why I don't believe the Christ and cannabis statement. While I do understand and know that Jesus was anointed with the cannabis oil, quite possibly because it is in the anointing oils, I don't believe that is the function or the proof of his power or anything like that. It's clear that it's the morality, it's the being able to be humble, and to be humble is to live within the Creator's laws. It's being able to know that yes, we can change this apart from the plan, but I'm going to stay within this plan, trusting the driver. I'm going to stay within this plan, trusting the pilot. Cannabis is an herb that was given on this earth, and it says that the herbs were given to us to eat for nourishment and for healing. And I do believe that it was taken out of our diets and out of our gardens for the purpose of making us to continue to degenerate, to get sick, to get worse. I do believe that cannabis is, well, scientifically, the receptors, the CBD receptors within our minds, are made to receive the CBD from within cannabis and the THC within cannabis and help to facilitate an understanding of the creator and an understanding of the forces we live within. Um, but to have that to understand or see, no, because um, there's actually a statement within scripture which says it's better for you to have faith that it happens than to actually have to watch it happen. And so there are those who have faith that don't have to have all those things taken and unlocked. And yep, Christ is the anointed one, and he is anointed with cannabis oil. Callum, it it wasn't just cannabis oil. It actually had like 5 ingredients or 7 ingredients. I believe it's in Leviticus. I would have to look it up again. Um, and those ingredients had not just representation of a position of authority that he was and has, but each one of them represents a physical thing that deals with healing, with spiritual growth, um, with connecting to uh, the creator. Um, so it was also that particular oil was only to be used on the priest and kings. They had another oil which had a different composition, which was used to anoint um, the population or the other people. And if you study this, you'll find that you're anointed either on your head or your feet. And I was just discussing this with somebody recently this week. And they were saying, hey, you know that you have the most sweat glands or you, the most connection with the blood in those two places. And so I cannot remember that formula. I can't remember if cannabis is in that formula, but I know that the one that the priest and king is anointed with is completely different and it's only reserved for them. And it was lost. It was lost with possibly him being one of the last ones anointed with it. Um, I personally, I'm going to say real quick, I personally believe that the the Bible, not just the 66 books that we have now, but even the ones that we know that they canonically purposely removed, such as Enoch, Jubilees, a few of these other texts, um, are the story of the one seed. I do believe that these tablets which we're reading are the histories, but even they attest to the fact that they are the other seed, the ones who are rebellious. Um, so, um, because of that, and because of where I walked into during my period of time occultically, um, I, oh boy, I'm just going to be open and honest. I know that my family will see some of these and probably see stories that they will put their hands over their mouth and hope that no more of their friends watch them. But the only way I can tell you these things is through my own experience. Um, uh, I had the experience where a being decided to come and talk to me while I was under the influence. I had taken LSD. I was at the end of a trip. This was not at any point in time when I was hallucinating. I was at the spent point where your emotions are overwhelming you, you're crying, you just wish that you didn't have to come down because now you have to do the rebound, the pendulum, and you're not sure how well you're going to deal with it. And so I'm laying on the floor, I'm looking up at a painting I'd put on the wall, and a being comes out And he says, okay, we need to negotiate for the power you're using here because this is my space. And he says, I'm going to take the person that you're living with in 2 years. That's my payment. And, or no, I'm sorry. Actually, it was, I'm going to take it in like 6 months. I'm like, no. I got a 2 year plan here. I mean, I had a conversation with this thing for a period of time. And the end negotiation was that the 2 year plan would continue. Lynn died of AIDS almost 2 years to the day after that conversation. Um, I found out Lynn had AIDS the very next day. When coming home, my neighbor takes me to the hospital. On the way home from that experience, you got to remember I'm still coming down. Um, these are pretty traumatic things. I have a car accident right in front of the place I bought the car from. They come out and see that I'm upset, and I tell them my spouse is in the hospital dying, and they actually swap me out of car for car right there, send me home. I get home and I have my first split. Um, Knowing that I could have AIDS, that I was very seriously at that point of fear, was so great that everything in my mind divided up, went every which different direction. I was too hot. I was too cold. I couldn't stand. I couldn't sit. I couldn't be inside. I couldn't be outside. Just every dichotomy happened. I wanted to just make it end. So I knew that I had to get back to the hospital where Lynn was at, which was 3 miles away. There was no way I could drive because I'd already wrecked one car on the way home. And I set out walking back to that hospital to check myself in. Along that route, I had conversations with 2 or 3 more beings. Now, remember, I don't know yet that Lynn's going to die 2 years in the future. All I'm facing right now is that yesterday I found out Lynn was dying. Today I find out, or I was told Lynn was dying in the spiritual realm. Today I find out Lynn is physically dying in this realm. And not only that, but my own mortality was at risk. And I didn't know that that was going to, for the next 3 years, be a shadow of fear, a great shadow of fear that would direct everything I did. When you live in fear, fear is your puppet master. Um, I walked to that hospital. I had these conversations along that way. And then over the next 3 years, this curse plays out, and each one of these conversations comes about one after the other. A physical, actual occurrence in this realm of something that was told to me. Okay, now remember, I'm already down. I'm no longer tripping. This is all through fear. I am in that realm. I have crossed that border. But I've had these conversations and these things are happening. And I know that it's going to keep happening for a period of time because of those conversations. Um, I had stepped out of faith. I had stepped out of living a ordered, moral, spiritual life and had taken on a what can I please myself with life. I had through that reaped destruction to other people for a period of about 6 to 7 years, and this is the culmination of that. This is that moment of weighing. This is what I call life checkpoints, where all of a sudden the creator comes and talks to you. I am in this hospital that I've just now walked into, and I've said, listen, Lynn's upstairs dying. I think I'm dying. They've already given me an AIDS test. I won't know for 2 weeks what its outcome is. I'm messed up. I want to kill myself. Well, that's the wrong thing to say if you ever walk into a psych place. I'll just tell you that straight up. because I can't take this. So I end up inside of a straitjacket laying on a bed. And I laid there for 72 hours. During that 72 hours, I was in a state of shock, uh, a state of extreme fear. Um, if anybody looks into MK Ultra, you would understand that basically I had the traumatic experience that triggered programming. And people will look at this and say, yes, you've been programmed. It is a psychosis. This is all in your head. And they'll dismiss it. They'll stay outside of it. Those people, we can't judge them just because they have a different type of faith, because they didn't have to walk the same path that we had to walk. And because society is judgmental and each one of us seems to think we got to weigh ourselves against the next guy, as opposed to, am I fulfilling a plan that's set in place for me? It's natural for them to have a form of judgment. They come from a church system that sets those judgments into place and then tells them you're not judging if you do these things. So it's good that they have that faith, that they can believe in a creator, okay? But my experience is that that physical realm and spiritual realm is very thin, the distance between the two. Somehow we have here within the tablets of Enki a race on this earth, flourishing on this earth, maintaining on this earth. And some people throw it back to Cro-Magnon, oh, somebody help me out here. What was the next one? You know what? If I'm getting stuck thinking, I may need some help. Oh, I'm going to stop and take a minute. I'm really shaky today still. Part of that is because by telling these things in some ways, I'm letting some of the demons out of my own head. And I see from some of the people that are here, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. And hopefully this will help you all as well. Yeah. It's still broke, or I'd bing bong it for you. But bing bong. We miss that, Bingus. Yep. That used to be a look forward to part of the day sometimes. Dog Pound. Last Dog, thanks for joining me, buddy. So, Flo, good to see you this morning. Actually, Stick Built, I will comment on the New Testament anointing for everyone. It says in those scriptures that if we walk in the path of the Christ, which is where I was getting to as to why I believe Jesus is the Christ in whatever name you profess him under at this point in time, because our understanding is a forward thing. But there is no longer a physical need for that oil to be poured upon us. If we live spiritually, it is done so, and we can walk in that same anointing. That's why I believe the Christ came. He lived as a man. He lived according to those spiritual laws. He fulfilled everything in all morality. He died for all of mankind because he was preaching to love. That he is the one that fulfilled those, and that it says he was filled with the Spirit of God, and there's hints in the words that it's important to his humbleness, which is how willing he was to live under God, or do according to the Father's will, um, which is when I'm talking about the cogs in the machine. If we do things according to the Father's will, if we work where we see him working, if we sow expecting to reap out of love, those are all things that are working together. Um, I wish I could give an example. It doesn't make much noise, but tick, tick, tick. Oh, I accidentally knocked one of my Clickatopes apart, and my other one, I do not have a strong enough can of butane to fill it any longer. So I've got to buy more butane. Cheers. I understand that being is sometimes the Creator sets us on a new path. He allows us to build a platform. He allows us to get the mechanics into place, or an understanding into place, to get the confidence. Um, all those things, and those are all just a preparation for his next step. And as long as we walk in those steps, he continues to bless us. And I'm just saying we miss it, buddy. It was there, it was right for the time, and I know that as things happen, you'll have new avenues and new things you're going to do, and we're going to appreciate all of them. Um, I, at that point in time when I found your show, was uh, really enjoying the newfound freedom of being able to walk around and not have to completely hide the fact that I was doing cannabis. I was able to begin to share the medical uses, begin to openly confess my own problems and say, look, it's helping me to become, and it's funny to say it this way, but quote unquote, a witness for its benefits. Um, so it was really neat that you had the same resources and you were facing some of the same issues in your garden, and some of those kind of things. And it was a real bonding and beneficial time. During that period of time, my wife once again turned her back on cannabis and left. Um, Her leaving was not just because of cannabis, it's an ongoing power struggle for many years. Um, but your timing each day always seemed to be about the time when certain things would start to trigger my head, and then we were able to stop and say, wait a minute, medicine. Let's relieve our brain. Let's get our focus back. Let's get our mind and body back into alignment, our spirit back into alignment. Quit thinking about what I want. Remember, the Creator's guiding these things, even though we don't understand what's going on at the particular time. We don't understand what this trial is supposed to teach us, what this trial is supposed to help us grow in. Um, Sometimes we don't even see that for a while, but it was really neat that it was good to form a brotherhood with you and see that, and we're really looking forward to what you're going to be doing in the future, Bingus, uh, especially with the all CBD, because that makes some inroad into a market, and that market right now is a whole bunch of sheep that are under fear, and we need ambassadors to go to them with what they're willing to accept and say, look, okay, we understand your fear of THC, the programming that you've been given, the government pounding it into your head, your church pounding it into your head, um, a whole redefinition of a plant within the last 100 years. Um, but without that psychoactive side, without that quote unquote touching with the mental disorders, that possibly unlocking some kind of boundary there that might make us have psychosis. Um, when in reality, life traumas put you into that psychosis, and the herb can actually help you calm down enough to get past the fear to find some type of reality and healing. And of course, they don't want our healing, so, but that's the conspiracy side of me talking. Um, let's see what we got going down. Well, I do appreciate everybody who's joined us this morning. Um, I did start off this hour by reading the first chapter and part of the second chapter out of Scripture. Um, my first point that I've tried to show and make, I'm just going to recap real quick so I can remember where I'm at. The first point I was trying to make was the fact that in the story of the Anunnaki, we have them coming upon something that's already created, and the text we have within Scripture relates to a creation that's between the physical and the spiritual. Um, so we're obviously talking about two different creation stories. Um, then I wanted to show that they weren't actually talking creation. They were mimicking a process, that they were changing something that was already here to fit them, to create it into their image, as opposed to what the creator already had set in place and adapting to it. Um, uh, that's pretty much as far as I've gotten, unless anybody else think of something else. I've tried to prove that there's a definite connection between the spirit and the physical. I tried to explain my experience with it and the things that happened. Um, I guess one thing I didn't make clear in that story is that each one of those chats I had with those beings walking back to that hospital were those following friends and how they died over those next 3 years. Um, Within a 5 year period, I lost 11 friends. Um, all of those that I walked out of truth and into the darkness with. How I was spared, it, there were several times when I was at the edge of participating in that point of going over, or I should say, I was at the point of going over the edge in the participation I was doing. And there was miraculous experiences that either stopped those particular ceremonies, or I was abducted in one case and actually disappeared from the whole thing. Well, I don't know which all's wrong with that. I apologize for all the dinging. I forgot to turn everything down, I guess. Um, That's probably going to do it again. Oh, good. Hi, Denise. Good to see you this morning. Thanks for coming in. And it's good to see my brother SOS Death Valley lives. It was an awesome party you had last night. If you don't remember it, I'm sure some of our friends can help you find video proof. But it was enjoyable. We decided to have fun together publicly last night with some of our friends online, even though we knew there was a lot of other shows going on. Some of them, well, most of them with giveaways. We just wanted to kick it back with our brother and have some fun, because not only was SOS's birthday that week, but we also had Tater and we had Budget Bud, all had birthdays within the same week. So, I mean, it was kind of a cool week for us to just kick back with each other. Yeah, brother, many thanks to everybody who came and helped us have a good time last night. Many of us stepped outside of our comfort zones, as I explained earlier. I actually had 3 drinks, And I'll tell you real quick about my drinking. Um, I actually, after my first son was born, some of the first wars me and my wife had were over the fact she was an alcoholic. And while I didn't believe drinking was evil or wrong, um, neither one of us really had control over our over alcoholism. Um, I had already gone through a stage where I had quit being a heavy drinker and gone to just a mild drinker by that point because of many of the things that happened, like the story I told earlier. Um, but when we came back into the church, um, after about 6 or 8 months of arguing over about whether or not we should drink, we had a fight one night, and I used to have hair that went all the way down to my butt. And she loved my hair as a beautician. It was her most favorite thing to do was to mess with my hair and keep it looking beautiful. And she went out to buy alcohol after we decided we needed to quit drinking. And she came home to find that piggy tail hanging on the front doorknob. And she learned very early in our marriage that I played a different game. Uh, I I'm passive aggressive. Um, it comes from the fact that having been hurt so many times throughout my life, I don't want to hurt others. But at the same time, when you don't feel like you have control over a situation, you often look for ways to uh, sabotage that situation. And for the first 3 or 4 months or years of our marriage, she had to deal with that. But understandably, we were both coming out of a party culture. We were giving up very destructive lifestyles together. We were trying to reinforce positive things within each other. Um, but when I felt like I'd lost control, I would do little things to sabotage. And that's the way I dealt with my anger back at that point in time in my life, because I hadn't grown to the point. It was after that we got to the escalated stage of the yelling. My wife had always come out yelling, and for me, coming from a house where if my dad even raised his voice to my mother, they went off in another room. Um, for me, that was the control element, the whipping that I found myself under. And in order to not lash out and beat somebody up, I would drop a vase or, just little things like that. Uh, Cut a ponytail off because I could control that. But our whole relationship changed the night I cut the ponytail off. And to be honest with you, it's one of three particular situations where if I had let it go, continue to play the status quo, I wouldn't be in the situation I am now. We were joking about getting older this week, and some of the things that happen to our bodies as men, and about and women, please don't take offense. We live in a culture where men don't feel in control of their own families. Um, Anyways, it was made the comment about she being gone. She took off with my balls, and I said, "No, it's because I kept my balls that she decided to leave." And I said, it's sad when you get old and you flush the toilet and that water comes up faster than you do and it hits the bottom of them. I said, I got my balls, but I just didn't know they were so dang heavy. So, anyways, but I digress, as a friend of mine would say. Um, Little break period here, and I went out. these little things we designed to suffer to the point of spiritual crackage and expansion. Y'all have a great day. Much love, brother. Thank you, Bingus. You have a great day and blessings. Hope your work at the farm is a benefit to you and to your bosses, and everybody will see a blessing through it today. Or whatever you set your hand to. I just assume you're going there because I know how you put your heart and your will into everything you do. Yeah, see, that's a problem with society nowadays, Jetta. They're disconnected and passed around too much. And then we got to figure out where they're at and who's actually got them to make a decision. It's messed up. It's the reason why I believe there's a structured order of authority, and that if done in love, that is a proper structure of authority. But when done in selfishness, it is the exact opposite of everything that could be positive to any relationship. And it takes two people working together in love, because when one's selfish, that can only go for so long before the other one either loses heart or runs out of juice. Some take longer than others. But I believe that if we would learn the truth of love, and that love is found through morality, it's found through, and I'm just going to be point blank, me not undressing my brother's wife or with my eyes or with my heart, or me not undressing every woman that walks by, or me not watching every type of show that portrays that, me purposely setting my eyes not to live on this flesh. We have to be men who are willing to put our resources into seeing our children walk in a path that is better, our wives to be provided for in such a way they feel that they feel loved within the home. It's it goes back to this battle once again. Are we going to do this for us, or are we going to do this for our wife and our children's coming up? Where is the heart of love? Because without love, an authority structure becomes tyrannical, and everybody underneath the authority becomes a slave. Our government was set up as a republic. Our government was set up so that if a person who was righteous and moral, who lived and worked for the betterment of society as a whole instead of his own pockets, would be in that place and position, that society as a whole would work together forward in love to build. But what happens is when that system is abused and a person gets in a position of authority, just as we see Inky in these tablets, I'm going to go build me a big castle, and I'm going to use my slaves to do it. I'm going to take and strip all these resources from the earth, and I'm going to use my slaves to do it. Okay, he didn't come to set man free. He came to enslave man. He testifies over and over that he came to enslave man to help them build their society, so they no longer had to work together to build it, so they could live in their own lusts and desires. Because their own world had come to the state where ours is now, because that's all they did was live within their own lusts and desires, pleasing themselves. See, this is a repetitive story. This is a repetitive story that doesn't just happen here on this earth, but from this earth goes throughout all of cosmology. And Stick, I like the fact that you put that in. It is the way of the tree of life. Something my wife shins little barbs at me at times, and one of the things she shot at me this last week, which I'm a person that doesn't just respond, I ponder to make sure I'm right before I respond, was that I had lost my touch with my belief in God. And I know she's coming from the mindset of the church God. And she's absolutely right. I have lost the touch with the God that she's serving because she's serving a structure and not a creator. Um, if she follows all the rules, she's going to get the reward, as opposed to if she lives out of love a path that's cut out for her, then she's rewarded with life in another time. She wants it now. Um, there's many people in that situation. Uh, Even within the church, you'll have within one family, I believe, all these different things we're seeing, they're deliberate attacks. They're coming at us through all these propagandized media outlets. And as they're able to affect more people, their spell gets bigger. It is a spell of rebellion. They're selling a dream. It's not a dream of us actually, as a society, reaching a true enlightenment. It's about us building a golden age out of our own strength and power. And that's the story. That's the counter story that's told of in Scripture. That's why Jesus says, I didn't come to build an empire in this universe. I came to set you free into the other place so that none of this matters other than what's coming. In that system, everything's provided for. Um, I'll give examples. Uh, he gives you your daily bread every day. He meets your debts. Um, he provides the strength for any trial or tribulation that's thrown against you. Um, all these are spiritual things that materialize as blessings in our lives in this physical world. Patrick, good to see you. Cheers. Jetta Joe, it actually, the only women I've ever heard profess that, and I honestly believe them, have unfortunately been in the same position that you were in with the broken down. Um, Sometimes pain can break programming. Just like they use pain to program trauma, sometimes those same traumas can become a healing thing. They become the growth, they become the understanding in a spiritual realm, um, understanding how this moral decision I made may have brought this to my body. And if I make this decision not to do that again and to try to correct these things, wow, healing's coming to my body. As we give life, life comes to us. As we walk properly, we get the benefit of the path we're walking on. Um, we see miracles in daily provision. We see miracles in daily health. Um, when you're brought to a point physically that is so low that you can't lean on your own self to make that, it's just so much you just can't deal with it. Then you find that power that's beyond you. You bring that spiritual reality into this physical vessel and this physical reality. Thanks for visiting, Stick Built. I'll probably sit and chit chat for about another 11, 12 minutes. I'm still working on exactly which text we're going to read next. I there there's some stuff I would like to do with these texts, like have 3 or 4 people be able to live talk and show, different uh, different things that they see in the text. Um, but I haven't been able to manage getting all my I's dotted, my T's crossed with getting it all set up. So thanks for visiting. You have a good, blessed day. I hope everything you do today is profitable to you and those around you, buddy. And may you walk in light and love. Just like trauma can bring in fear, trauma can actually bring you out of fear. Um, so Flo, the beauty of it is, buddy, you're younger than me, and I can just watch that day that you show up and you got that look on your face, and I'll say, you flushed the toilet and didn't get up too fast, did you, buddy? Hopefully we're friends that long, my friend, because some of them old guys used to do that to us when we were joking around with them, sitting at the liar's table at the local convenience store or something. Uh, oh. Well, real quick, I have abusive OG today, and whereas most of the OGs put me immediately to sleep, I seem to be able to stay awake on this one, so that's pretty good. It goes immediately to the areas that are hurting. And just kind of melts them a little bit more each time. Yep. I do appreciate everybody that's come in today and listened to me chit and chat about my life and about the things I'm reading and doing. For sharing the time on what I call a Sabbath. It's my day of rest. I don't do anything but study and listen to other teachers and read the stories and scriptures, especially when I hear something that somebody says that I think, well, I read that or I read something close to it. I need to find out what that was. Because nowadays, everybody turns everything around. You've got these guys out there saying that we were created by the Anunnaki by some kind of genetic experience. No, we weren't created. We were tampered with. We were enslaved. And they want to make it sound like there are gods at the same time saying they're not gods. And yet, this is all a story that's about to play out again for some reason now. I mean, I'm not bringing this stuff up in a group of people who don't know what I'm saying. I mean, this stuff's all over public and private media. Why is it all over public and private media? Because I believe it's a spiritual battle that's about to have an end play. Um, I believe that we've got to be real careful at looking at what we're hearing, trying to see where it's coming from, trying to see how it may be trying to be used to influence us. Because remember, they have the knowledge of good and evil. They're going to try to attack us with both good and evil. They're going to try to deceive us with the red and the blue pill. It kills me when people say, oh, I've taken the other pill. No, you've taken a pill. You realize that after about your third or fourth medication doesn't work and you turn to a natural herb or a plant, and daggum, for the first time you're starting to see a reversal of your condition after years, being able to use it enough openly to not just maintain but to begin to see a healing effect. Now it has provided an inroad into the others that are sick within my family who have lived under that Southern Baptist mindset for all their years. Now that the patriarch, my dad, is out of the way and I'm the patriarch, and they're seeing that I've gone through this life experience, and this is why I was kind of hesitant, and I guess I'm just going to make these things. They can watch them and hear the stories and see why I am and where I'm at and all that kind of stuff. Because even in our own families, we have masks and games and stuff that are, shame on yous. We told you not to do that. We told you if you did that, that would happen. Shame on you. Well, I was a hard learner. And I told all these stories to my kids so that my kids would hopefully say, "Whoa, Dad, I see that happening to you, and I don't want it to happen to me." Um, I'm sharing them now so that other people will say, "Whoa, that might help me here." Um, all the attacks, the hate, all that kind of stuff that comes with laying yourself out there and being honest, it's not about those people. We got to keep that in mind for those who are in this community and who are trying to help others. If they have issues, that we can only answer one way, and that's to try to figure out the most loving way of dealing with each and every one of those issues. Sometimes ignoring hate, it goes away. Sometimes ignoring just uh, outright attacks, they go away. At other times, they don't. At other times, you have to first talk with the person. If that doesn't work, you have to take somebody with you and talk with that person. If that doesn't work and it keeps being a public thing, then you have a public session. And you lay out all the cards. And in society, we used to have what they call righteous judges. Judges who weren't there to fill their pockets, but to help people get along. Cheers, man Green. Good to see you this morning, buddy. Patrick, I find many scriptures that say don't call conspiracy what everybody else calls conspiracy. Now, do I believe these guys see and hear things in many different forms or manners? Yes. Do I believe that some of them are from the spiritual side, some of them are from the physical side, and do I put as much legitimacy in both? From my earlier story, you know that yes, I do. Cheers, man. Um, it tells us in those scriptures to approach everybody with discernment, to watch their fruit, to see whether they are building or destroying, whether they are lying or telling the truth, whether what they say comes to pass or doesn't, um, to watch what kind of money motivations they have. All these things are given us not to judge, as in, oh, you're wrong and I'm right, but as in say, wait a minute, those are things I don't need to participate with. So there's a lot of people that I've listened and watched their stuff and kind of dug deeper into their work to find out what was behind it. And sometimes you find out that there's some things they twist to prove their point. But that happens across the board. You know, that's part of our social programming from the physical or from the flesh. That's part of the thing that we have to daily fight against, to walk on a spiritual path of light. Um, and that's, I guess I got kind of preachy today. Oh, I've all week long I sat and I went back and forth what to do, you know, how to break this down. I kind of lined up with a few people trying to get some things worked out, and they honestly worked at it from their end, but just you know, back and forth, things have to occur together at the same time to make some things happen. Um, so I got to today, and the only thing that kept coming over and over was the fact that the only way for me not to cause an argument, but just try to show that we need to evaluate each and everything we read. And yes, I'd love to get a panel together and start nitpicking each and every point, because that's my favorite thing to do, and I've done it for years. Um, but we got to be careful when we nitpick points within a community, because all of us have different experiences, and each one of our experiences is true and unique to us. They teach us a particular lesson. And when we assume that somebody else has to have that experience to learn the same lesson, or they have to go through it the same way I did to understand the way I did, that goes back to doing things within our own power. Because we're not working and being a cog in what's naturally happening. We're trying to direct and cause something. And when you begin to look at people and you see these kind of characteristics, very good word, Patrick, discernment. Yes, discernment is a personal thing. And discernment is personal because each one of us may have a different reason for having an interaction for another person. It may be all right for one person to have a friendship, but it may not be right for me to have a particular friendship with one person. And that doesn't particularly mean me and that third person have to not be friends. I mean, each one of us is having a personal experience of growth, or we're having a personal experience where we're destroying. The haters know who they are. They're out there to destroy. They want to pick things apart. They want to be antagonists. Um, but see, Patrick, the dependent on personal IQ, experiences, and limitations, that's where the faith comes into play. That's where having hope comes into play. That's where my personal belief in a creator being an author and finisher. He set this whole thing into motion. He knows exactly what he did. He stands outside of my understanding of time, space, dimension of any form. It all exists within him, yet separate from him. All these are cosmological ideas which can be proven one way or another, but at the same time, according to our own personal IQ, experience, or otherwise, we could interpret those a different way and get set on those plans. And it's where we have hope and faith that that creator has us all going in a particular direction toward the next step of man's growth spiritually and physically. um, Evolution is such a loaded word. So is enlightenment. They're both loaded words. They've been co-opted and given meaning that, you know I think most of you understand what I'm trying to say. But he's guiding us toward a purpose. And each one of our individual things is in a cog. It meshes. It works. If it's meant for bad, he turns it to good. If somebody else tries to do us evil, he turns it to good. If we bless, he brings the blessing back. If we sow hate, he brings the hate back. A hater, a lot of times they can't get out of the hate because it's a propagating thing. It's a cycle. It's a circle. And it builds up and builds up and builds up until death. Um, I understand that these author speakers need to pay rent, but it's often spooky to listen to guys like him. And brother, it's because it's gone beyond the point of paying rent. Because scripture's clear that if a man works and he gives you something, whether that's an understanding or a loaf of bread, you pay him according to that understanding or loaf of bread, according to how it brings benefit to your life. And they've forgotten this. They've begun to assume that they're owed it in some way because they're giving this out to somebody who doesn't have it. And that goes back into that mindset, that seed thought, that which idea are we going to be under or do? Are we going to do this for ourselves or for others? But as in scripture, the prophet of Balaam was used to speak truth. It doesn't mean they haven't seen or hear or know some type of truth. But to become an all-out follower of these people and to follow their dogma and their theology and all the rest of that, that's where discernment comes in. And in each one of our limited understanding, the Creator drives that. I belonged to a cult church for 2.5 years. I belonged to a cult church that used us very greatly until I got to the sick point of being put into the hospital. And I had to go through that cult church to learn how much of those occultic, dark, this is my kingdom things were at play within the quote unquote kingdom of God. Um, each one of us, let me touch you this way. There was more than 3 blind guys that Jesus touched, but there's 3 of them that there's a specific story of. One guy he spoke to and his eyes were open. One guy he touched and his eyes were open. One guy, he had to pick up clay, spit in it, mix it up in the mud, put it on his eyes, have him go wash it. Oh, need some more? Mix up some clay, rub it in his eyes, have him go wash it. Okay, each one of those men had a touch with the Creator. Each one of those men went from being blind to seeing. But each one of those men had to have a different experience to get there. Now, a testimony of saying the Creator touched me, He made me so that I can see when I was blind, is one thing. But then to go out and say, hey, I was blind, I can now see. Let me touch you and make you blind and see. Just give me a little something. That's a whole nother story. And that's where we have to believe that this same Creator has an ultimate judgment for righteousness or for walking according to that path. I'm always open to listen, and one person may have a total different experience with the same thing as another. Exactly. Like a programmer watching its program run its course. I'm wondering if you're talking about the Creator. And what's kind of funny is lately that's been a theme. I believe it's to attack the point of the fact that the Creator still is operating within His creation physically every moment. It's kind of to distract us. I say that because most of what happens to us occurs because of that programming that was originally written. Spiritual law was put into place, yin and yang, sowing and reaping. Everything that you do evil has a curse. Everything that you do that's beneficial has a blessing. All that was written into place. So does He have to come and particularly smite each and every individual one? It says no, He doesn't, because it's going to weigh out to an ultimate judgment. It's going to be what we're going to see play out. And as men get evil, everything is going to fall apart around them. If men would learn to walk in righteousness and to put aside themselves, then everything will get better and grow and heal. And many times in the past, we've come to this point and society's grouped together and we've healed and we've continued on. But it says that eventually there's coming a time when this cup gets spun the other way and there's more hurt than there is healing. And when that happens, it falls down first within the universal realm, and then ultimately He has to come back and step in and correct it Himself. Earlier, I referred to this being a pattern that happens over and over again. It seems that this particular golden age to destruction to building has happened at least, I mean, they say 3 proven and possibly 5. Many will say through spiritual esoteric, ideas that we're definitely in the 5th, headed into the 6th. All those are things that can be debated, but just the simple fact that it all exists was all put into place at the point when the Word came forth. It was a structure. It was a machine. Within that machine, in order for the beings to progress, there has to be free will. With free will comes bad decisions. With free will comes evil decisions. Within the machine was written the code of the blessing and cursing. And it's not just what we say, it's in our action, it's in our heart, it's in what we do. But now we seem to be at a technological level at which one individual can have an inhumanity button and claim that his is bigger than his opponent's just moments before he presses it. And see, that's where you're absolutely right. And that's where within these stories we have the cataclysms. Because it seems like every time man comes to that point, and that evil one is going to say, fine, you don't want to do what I'm going to say, I'm going to prove it by destroying it all and returning all this back to chaos. We have a cataclysm that erases that time period. Part of that original creation of man is brought forward. Somehow, part of each and every realm moves forward through that cataclysm. Each and every dimension, each and every, I don't know how to explain it, moves through that cataclysm. And we are once again coming to that point where man can, quote unquote, play God, destroy what the Creator has made, create abominations, monsters out of what the Creator has made. Do all of these technologies have the potential to help and build? Well, the Creator would never allow them to exist within His own realm if they didn't. And it all goes back to the seed battle fight. It all goes back to who is on that throne. Is righteousness on that throne, or is a selfishness on that throne? No, Bud Patrick, you're doing good, man. I'm sitting chatting. I was going to close down a few minutes ago, but you're helping bring out some of my ideas, so that's cool. You're helping me clarify some of the things I was trying to say. I'm a picture person. I see ideas, I see patterns, and I'm dyslexic. Not just writing, not just talking sometimes, but even in that picture. So I believe God did that to make me humble because I think I know a lot, and yet half the time I can say it backwards, specifically while looking at the picture in my mind. So I have to really think about what I'm saying. As a kid, I was a ranter. I had my opinions on everything, and everybody was going to hear them. And I had to shut up for quite a few years to learn to control what I have to say. But now I do have a picture I'm trying to get across. I do have a picture I want to share. It's the same picture that I've been able to share with my children. And I do appreciate everybody that's joined me in that venture this week. Thanks for ending this out with me. There's certainly still some blessings to you. I hope all of you will have a very blessed day with peace. Any pain or discomfort you're in will be relieved, that you'll forget all about it, that you will be blessed in each and every way that can bring comfort to you today. Have a good week. Look forward to seeing y'all again next weekend. Still working on what next weekend's going to be like. So take care.